Conversations with Nicole. Let's talk about it. Tell me all about it. I'm here. I wanna know what's on your mind. Ooh, the world needs to hear from you, and I'm so glad to have a conversation to reach the nation. And it's all about you. We'll help each other to discover innovative ways to positively change the world. Let's talk about, let's talk about, yeah. Let's talk about conversations with Nicole.
Greetings. Happy Monday. Welcome to Conversations with Nicole. I am Nicole Everett, your host. And Conversations with Nicole is a talk show based in Tallahassee, Florida, focused on connecting the community through conversations. And today is what I call Mindset Monday. Mindset Monday is an opportunity for you, me, and my guests to talk about whatever it is we want to talk about. And today, we are talking about African American culture and chronic disease. African American culture and chronic disease. And so my very special guest is a doctor, a MD doctor, Dr. Emmanuel Inwang. And so we are super excited and delighted to have him on here with us tonight. But before I introduce him and bring him on with me, I want to hear from you. Where are you tuning in from? Let me know in the comments. Put your city and your state. We are live on Facebook, on YouTube, and on the Greater Words Network on RokuTV. This is a safe space for us to communicate with one another. And so we invite you to engage with us tonight. Enter your comments, enter your questions on Facebook, on YouTube. We look forward to having a conversation with you. So I see my lovely cousin Denise is already on here from Texas. Thank you for being on here, cuz. Hope you are doing well on this Monday. We got Father's Day coming up on Sunday. We got Juneteenth coming up next Monday. So lots of activities coming up on our calendars. I know a lot of folks are traveling and doing all sorts of things. So, I'm just grateful that you all are with us here today. I know there'll be a few more people joining us very, very shortly. I don't know what you all did this weekend, but I had a busy one. I was hanging out at the Ioka African Dance and Drum Festival here in Tallahassee, and boy, what a time we had. I mean, we got our dance in. We had dancers as far west as Dallas and a drum professionals from Vermont. All of the drummers and dancers who were instructors were from Africa in terms of origin, but they flew in from all across the country to be here in Tallahassee to continue the legacy of dance and drum, African dance and drum culture here in Tallahassee, extending what the African and Caribbean Dance Theater started not 30 years ago, I suppose. So at any rate, I'm going to bring my special guest on who actually is, I believe, of Nigerian descent or African descent. And he'll tell us a little bit about that in a little bit. But Dr. Emmanuel Inwang completed 7 years of training and graduated with a doctorate degree from the Florida Agricultural and Mechanical University College of Pharmacy, and the Rattlers in the house, and completed an ambulatory care residency with emphasis on HIV/AIDS therapy. He is a licensed pharmacist consultant and completed certificate training in pharmacogenetics. He's going to tell me how to pronounce that. He's originally from Miami and of Nigerian descent and comes from a long line of healthcare workers in his family, from physicians and RNs. He now specializes in metabolic disorders and chronic disease consultation in ambulatory care management. Additionally, has been an ambulatory care 1 and 2 preceptor for the Florida A&M College of Pharmacy and Pharmaceutical Sciences, and he contracts with medical practices, FQHCs, ALS, nursing homes, as a consultant for their chronically ill patients. Currently, he consults with complex ill clients with several severe disease states, such as end-stage renal failure, and provides pharmacogenetics testing for his population in need. He is the director of WCRX Health, which provides preventive care services in 28 states with similar cohort of clients. As director, he provides disseminated services to all our affiliated MD DO clinics, special closed pharmacy systems. Dr. Emmanuel has utilized his skill set to provide consultation and development of the WCRX Health. WCRX Health provides preventive care services, and we're going to talk all about that. Special closed pharmacy services, drug delivery systems. He also consults and serves affordable care organizations, clinics, clinic research centers, train in certificate training programs, and medical consultant chronic case management services. Dr. Emmanuel sees himself as a clinical advocate and for our vulnerable children and seniors, chronically ill, mentally ill, and physically handicapped population. His motto is prevention is the secret to wellness, and strives to keep that motto as part of his traditions, along with doing no harm to his clients. Y'all help me welcome Dr. Emmanuel Inwang. Yay! Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you.
How you doing?
Doing good.
Good. Glad to have you.
Good. Thank you.
All right. My homeboy, 305 in the house.
Yep. We gotta keep it together over there.
Yes, please keep it together. Somebody got to. All right, we got some folks joining us. I believe this is Frankel, who is here in Tallahassee. We got Ozzy Daniel, a clinician in Virginia Beach. Miss Keosha is with us tonight here in Tallahassee. Thank you all for being here. And Cousin Denise says, welcome, Dr. Emmanuel.
Thank you.
All right, so tell the people, who are you? Not what you do. I tried to get through that bio, but who are you? Not what you do. Tell us briefly, who are you?
I think I'm just personally, I think I'm a regular Black man trying to make it in the world, trying to fit the narrative, destroy stereotypes about who we are, what we do, what our capabilities are, and just strive to be a better person in general. I have my past sins just like anybody else, and I do my best to rectify them. I really have a passion and love for healthcare and for my people in particular, and all people in general, just not my own, but we have suffered a lot. So, that becomes a initial direction per se. But that's me. I'm a talkative person a little bit. I think I'm friendly. Like that.
All right, and you're a rattler, so you all right with me.
Thank you.
All right, very good. Okay, so I see my mom has joined us from Miami. Thank you for being here. And Miss Shirley in Tallahassee, thank you for being here. So listen, y'all, tag a friend and let them know y'all want to be part of this conversation, because this is going to be good. Me and Dr. Emmanuel talked yesterday, and boy, he was just blowing my mind with some of the things that he was telling me about this healthcare system and just the detriment that is being done to folks of color. So We are going to dive in just a moment, but I want you to talk to us a little bit about WCRX Health, what it does and who it's for.
Okay. Well, WCRX, the acronym is stands for Wellness Center, but there's so many wellness centers that we, had to add the RX on there for the pharmacy, and then health, because we have clinic and we have other services that we do that are all tied into healthcare. Um, what WCRX does in general is just like the motto: prevention is the secret to wellness. When you unfortunately have a situation, a disease state, that has happened, or you were born with it, or it came about, during your lifetime, especially in this country, if it's something that's not curable, it's something that can be maintained depending on how you handle it. And one of the things that I noticed while I was in school, honestly, volunteering, was that I would go to different places, mainly places that had people of color. And I just noticed it really didn't matter the education level. We just seemed to have this very lackadaisical type of attitude towards our health compared to other folks of other races. If I said something to any of them, they kind of took it much more, you know, serious to a certain extent. And as I noticed through the years that I would do these volunteer services, even after my residency in the hospital, I would see some of these same people that I talked to. And I was like, didn't we, I'd sneak up sometimes from where I was in my station and sneak up to their room, and I'd say, hey, Mr. and Mrs. So-and-so, didn't I tell you to go get yourself checked on this and that? And some would pass, some would, have a situation. I'd speak to the family member, and I was just a graduate. I just graduated. I didn't have any answers or know what to do, but it would just bother me that something as simple as checking your pressure, checking your sugar, or doing something to counteract your pressure or your sugar being high, you end up with a stroke, or you end up in a coma because of your sugar and your levels, which was just so unnecessary. We were dying and being debilitated at such a rapid rate on so many unnecessary things, not to mention, not to get on the soapbox, but not to mention the things that already happened to us as a people that have been initiated and been done by design, and some by our own fault. But it's almost crazy for us to take it so lightly, and that was where WCRX Health, in a sense, was born, as far as the services. And I've just been continuing to do it, and it became my I always call it my not like a preacher, but my what's the word I'm trying to use?
Calling, ministry.
Yeah, I guess you could say, a ministry. Evangelism is what I could say.
Okay.
I look at it in that fashion because it's just, it never changes. The conversations I have, no matter what churches I go to, anywhere with our people in particular, it's the same old, it's the same thing.
Mm-hmm.
And I just notice, education or not, we all seem to kind of have this weird, long-suffering kind of behavior, like it's going to be all right. And it's like, no, not this thing right here that we just saw. You got to fix that now.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
So I hope you all are sensing and feeling what he's talking about, and which is why we are having this conversation around African American culture and chronic disease awareness, because it's serious. It's serious, and we have got to take better care of ourselves. We've got to take care better ourselves. So I'm going to put somebody on the spot, Miss Kiosha Forston, who I call Miss Fine. Kiosha has really taken charge of her health. I mean, she exercises, I think maybe, if not 5 or 6 times a week, maybe every day. She does meal prep, and she has successfully lost, I believe, around 75 pounds, and she looks wonderful. She does, I think they call it intermittent fasting. So she so many hours on in terms of eating. She has an eating window. And then she doesn't eat, you know, during certain times as well. And so she has really, I mean, I just marvel at, what she's been able to do health wise. And she started her own health company called the Drop 50 Club. And
Mhm.
so she has recipes, she has fitness tips, but it's all about like decluttering your life. And that's not only from a physical health in terms of what you intake, but mentally as well. And
Absolutely.
so, absolutely amazing story. She's been a guest on the show, and so I'm so just proud of her and the work that she has done. She's so funny. She just put a comment. She talking about, I got nervous when you said my whole government name. Yes, I did. But again, just a perfect example of somebody who was intentional. She talks about being consistent with being persistent, or maybe it's the other way around, being persistent about being consistent. But she has consistently, gotten off of the blood pressure medicine. I believe that's right. Tell us which medicine you got off of, Kiosha. But I think it was the blood pressure medicine, either that or one of the others. But as a result of taking control of her health. And
Mhm.
so it can be done. It can be done. So we're going to talk again a little deeper about, what those things are and how to do them. She said, let's be persistent about being consistent about our health. I love it. I love it. I love it. I love it. All right. So, I mean, you gave us a little bit of a overview of kind of this topic, but in my preparing for this, I looked up chronic disease in African Americans, and it talked about some of the diseases that we are prone to experience, which are heart disease, stroke, um as well as HIV/AIDS and high blood pressure. And so it's just like, whoa, we got a
Yeah.
lot that we contended with.
Yeah, and every single one that you said is preventable. That's the part that I it marvels, and I feel like a hypocrite sometimes because God knows there's certain things that I do that I'm really trying to change. Like Chick-fil-A is one of them. Certain
Mhm.
things you have to like do, even if you're not doing it for yourself, do it for your family.
Right.
Whatever you think you need to do as far as to just make sure you're there, make sure that you're being an example. Um, again, some of the diseases you mentioned, um, when we allow that one to get so bad, it causes a secondary disease. And when you now want to go back to what your doctor was saying to you, telling you should do, it's already in at that point, sometimes too late. That's how
Mhm.
we are ending up on doing this actual HBCU tour that we're going to be doing, is because of the fact that that concept and that culture and that understanding of how we are, it just it just has to change. We are very strong people,
Yeah.
and I think that because of that, the women, the men in their own right are just strong people. And it's sad to say that's one of the reasons why we were enslaved, because they're like, man, these ones right here, they can keep going and they won't drop dead like the rest of them were.
Right.
And that was one of the things. Country folks call it hard bodies. They'd say, "Oh, he got a hard body," and
Mhm.
that's because we. I was at church a few weeks ago. I can't remember, and a lady was preaching. She was 98 years old on
Wow.
the stage preaching, and I'm very sure she had no medications. And if you asked her what she does and everything, it's some of the most basic things that we used to do back in the day,
Mhm.
and not allow people. You ask them, 99% of them will say, "Oh, I just don't let nobody stress me. I take my walks. I've been walking. I do this. I do that." You know, and they keep it simple. And
Mhm.
simplicity is what can lead to complexity to a certain extent. But I think we overdo it in everything that we do. A perfect example, we get a fried piece of chicken breast. It's already a chicken breast, and then you bread it and you put the batter all over it. Then you fry it, and then after you fry it, you dip it in some kind of sauce. And after you dip it in some sauce, then you go get your ranch dressing and mayonnaise, and like so. it was a piece of chicken at one time.
It
And that's what I mean about what we do as a people. When I speak at churches, and I'll say basic things like take the fat back. I know the fat back has flavor, but there's some other ways you can utilize things to reduce, your cholesterol and take the fat back out of greens. The church mothers want to beat me down. I've said this several times in different talks that I've had, and people will laugh, but they're offended about the way you approach them with certain things. So our culture is a little bit different, but it definitely tends to hurt us a little bit. And then if it comes from other people from other races, they definitely feel like, oh, you just a so-and-so from so-and-so, you don't know us. I'm even, I was born and raised in Miami, Florida. But, after a while, if I say something, they'll look at my last name and, oh, you ain't even really one of us anyway. It's like there's always an excuse behind certain ththings. If I say it to my folks that are overseas, oh, well, you're Americanized anyway. So it's always a cop-out. It's
oh
never,
my goodness.
it's always a cop-out. It's never especially our men,
The accountability, responsibility.
the accountability is just not there. And I'm not saying that it's all our fault. Like the way we got into the research I mentioned to you was from me, quote unquote, clinically clapping back at somebody of a totally different race that was commenting on our behavior of how we handle ourselves in health. And they did have a point, but what I didn't like was how they, conveniently left out all the different butchering from the Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde and all the things that I mentioned to you that they have done, all of the different novel inventions you've come up with off of using Black women, seeing how they react when they're pregnant, seeing how they react when they lose the baby, everything under the sun. If you want to talk and denigrate, you better bring it all or don't say any of it. So that was how I felt about it. And again, I stay in the middle to a certain extent. Maybe it's because I'm a middle child, but I stay in the middle and I hold us both accountable. We have to do our own, but we definitely don't want to overlook the things that have put us in those situations as well, because it plays a huge part also.
Absolutely. So we have Dr. Cherie on with us. She said intermittent fasting fan here too. It's a lifestyle. So she's congratulating Kiosha. And Kiosha said no longer pre-diabetic and no longer on meds for hypertension.
Oh, and Lodafen. Yep, that's the Black man and woman's. That's like our medication for Black folks. I mean, it really literally says that in our literature that that's one of the best. They're called calcium channel blockers, and that seems to be one of the best medications for us besides these other medications. And that's kind of sad that it's to that point where it's known like that, because we've just eaten ourselves to a point where that can happen. But you see that Miss Kiosha reversed it. It's a lifestyle. If you actually make a valiant effort to do something about it, it can be done. But again, most of the time, it's they call it end organ damage, especially with hypertension. If you keep letting your pressure go up, that's when the strokes happen. That's when the kidneys fail. Yes. Something will pop, just like if an engine is getting too hot, something's gonna pop. It's the same thing with the, same thing with the human body. And sometimes you can't fix it. And, or you'll say, man, after my engine almost blew and they fixed it, it just really don't drive the same. And you'll feel like that. And then it really sometimes is the truth. And that's because, the prevention wasn't prevented.
The prevention wasn't prevented. Absolutely. Kiosha said that it has been a game changer for her. Ozzy said, got to be intentional about it. That's the only way we will be under the control of the mind, master the mind, and it will master the body. Let's see. He said, I intermittently fast 18 hours a day now. The best feeling ever. Sleep is even sweeter. All right. And Mom said, I learned from my loved ones I can't do some of the things they did. The best gift you can give your family is to take good care of yourself. I wonder where you heard that from before, Mom. All right. We got Miss Keisha Walker on with us. Thank you for joining us. Kiosha says some people would rather put a pill in their mouth than change what they put in their mouth.
Yep.
Very true.
Some of them will cut me off. I'll start giving them the speech of, you can revert, doc, what's that pill that you said? Like they want the pill, they're gonna keep eating the way they're eating. They'll tell you straight up sometimes. So she's 100% correct.
Mm-hmm. Wow. Wow, wow, wow. So tell us some more about some of the things that you are, seeing and what you have coming up, and as it relates to this tour, and what are you hoping, folks will get from it?
To be honest with you, I just want I'm hoping that with this tour, the tour came about from me running the streets of Tallahassee as a college student. And I was at that time, Tupac, Malcolm X, Martin Luther King. I was mixed up in everything, thinking I could change the world in the little 4 years that I was there, And at the time, I just loved the camaraderie with the HBCUs. But as I continued on my residency section and we were now in the HIV/AIDS arena, there was an area you may be familiar with in South Florida called Belglade, and Belglade was known for being like full of HIV patients. And I used to just say, like everybody else when I was in Miami, oh, Belglade, and make these comments. But as I got older and I thought about that, I noticed there was an article back in the day that they did about Quincy, Florida. And I had really, really close friends from Quincy, Florida. Mm-hmm. And I actually ended up being requested to be like somewhat of a health ambassador in that arena. And as I started doing more and more research on Quincy, Florida, I noticed that it was the most populated Black county. Mm-hmm. It was highly educated. And then I came to find out, historically speaking, it was one of the places where the Confederates made some of their last stand and had to run off. So there was a lot of history behind that. So then what I noticed was it would be to the demise and the detriment of the state of Florida if Quincy, because of their county, were able to tip the scales, which Florida was so unpredictable on voting. So I had all my conspiracy theories and I thought I was off until I met a lady, a commissioner from there, and I just sat her down. She ended up bringing me into a little room and I was just like, man, this is like back in the old days. And she said, this is where I talk to everyone. And she was a commissioner. And she said to me, there's a lot of things that you don't know. This road right here is still called the Sons of the Confederate. She said, it is to the benefit of some people to absolutely destroy the Black race in here. She says, we are a very strong county. We've had great history and everything. And it honestly brought tears to my eyes. So some of the theories of what I was thinking was the truth really was what she was saying. Some people will have their comments. Some people will say, oh, that's just you making up excuses. But you could look at the statistics of those cities and see that it was a financial gain. And also, in my personal opinion, a desire to wipe us out to a certain extent, which failed, but that was the goal at the time. And I was just really shocked about it. So when we were doing our residencies, when I was doing my residency, one of the things that the health department requested for us to do, which kind of had me a little spooked, was when we found out a patient had HIV, there was a certain standard of practice that they would use to notify that patient that you have HIV. By the time they got to me, there was no surprise. All the tears and all the shock and everything else that they must have gone through when they were told that they have HIV, they were now going to see me pretty much almost for the rest of their life if I continued working in that particular area, because they were going to come and get drugs from me every month. And the government would only pay for those drugs if we had a lab which gave us the results of your viral load and things of that nature. So that concept of going after those people with HIV/AIDS was pretty surprising, but it was also something that was painful to see, because I'd say if I had 10 people in that day, 8.5, which you can't really say, you might as well say now 9 if you round it off, they were African American. If it was on a good day, I don't want to say good like I want it to be another race, but it was like, my God, what are we doing? And what I noticed from there was the person was just not an HIV patient. They had HIV and high blood pressure, HIV and diabetes, HIV and herpes, HIV and herpes and hepatitis. And I mean, it was just crazy. So I was just so surprised on how our people in particular were, again, the term and the word is long suffering. And I used to say the same thing to a lot of the Nigerian folks that I would talk to. I'd say, you all think it's okay to just keep managing and maintaining. And that's a term that I said I have arguments with people here in America about. I said we have to get to a point where we don't see certain things that are not right as right. We have to even the playing field. And some of the things I will point the finger at the system, some of the things I will point the finger right back at us for accountability. That's all that I've continued to do. And as I continued down that road, a lot of what I did, I ended up having to do myself. I wanted to partner with some of the MDs so that they can help assist me. Now we have a system in place where MDs are working directly with us contractually and some other things for us to provide the service. Because when I used to speak about it in a certain aspect, it wasn't really, I don't think it resonated to them because, of course, they had to focus on what they were dealing with at hand. But me working in the hospital, me working in the ERs, I saw something on a statistical level that really bothered me. And I felt that I can do, when you feel like you can do something about it, you should always try to do it. And that's what I did. And we continued from that point with the company. And it's, by the grace of God, we've been getting stronger, better. The tour came about from one of my mentors and his son and brother Shahid when I was running the streets and Black Power this and, power to the people that at a time. But, I haven't changed. I've just redirected my focus on realities. At that time, it was finger pointing a lot more than me also looking at the accountability of what we need to do as well. So as I grew up, and as I grew up and realized there's a better way to do a lot of these things, we just went in a direction that I knew would be much more forceful. I started attending some of the churches. I would provide out of my own pocket health fairs at the churches. I continued where I left off with the residency. Unfortunately, the residency didn't do those things that I was doing at the time. That was by choice. We were just supplied by the health department. But when I was done, the next resident can do whatever they wanted. And this resident was more of a politician. This one went into like governmental stuff and would do speeches and all these other types of things. So just like that, the community was back to where they were again. And I had no say so, no control. I tried to convince, I talked to him about it. And the school was like, well, that's what his research and his focus is on. And he would always say things to me like he was a politician acting kind of guy. So he would say things in a way to try to convince you. And I just look at him like, really? You're talking to somebody that did the same thing like you. I get what you're trying to say, but people are dying as we speak. So if we can fix it now with what we have as resources right now, then we can do it. When I would travel back to Nigeria and I would ask my mom, like, in America, they call it the country. In Nigeria, they call it the village. You travel back to the village and someone falls, breaks their leg, or they're sick. They got to figure out how to deal with that situation right there and then. So if there was things that could be done quick to service them or prevent, that was what I noticed some of them would do. So I would constantly look at a lot of those things and notice that that was some of the things that used to be done in our cultures. When we started getting a little more wealthy, having some more money, being less active, we started getting what they call back in the day. They used to call it the rich man disease when you had all these guys. Yeah, you look up in history, you'll see the people, the rich, lazy Europeans back in the day, they had these diseases.
Gotcha.
The ones we currently have, a lot of them had those diseases, and people would make them and say, oh, that's the rich man disease, because they were able to overindulge in the sugars and the fats and all the stuff that we just could buy for 99 cents or get them to for $1 and all the things that we do now, so that's what it is.
All right. Well, let me pause you for a moment. We are a little more than halfway through our broadcast. And so I want to let those of you who are just joining us know that we are on with Dr. Emmanuel Patrick Inwang, and we are talking about African American culture and chronic disease. Dr. Emmanuel is the director of WCRX Health. And he actually has a tour that he is doing that will be kicked off here in Tallahassee on June 26th from 1 to 3 in the Grand Ballroom at FAMU. And I am actually going to be moderating that discussion, and I'll definitely put the flyer out for you all to register and be a part of that conversation. But you're getting a preview right here on Conversations with Nicole Mindset Monday. We're talking about our culture and how we need to change our mindset about our health, right? We don't need to take on this kind of what do you call it? Long suffering. That's what he calls it. This long suffering mindset. Like, that's just the way it is. That's just what Black folks get, and we gonna be all right. No, change that mindset and do something about it. So I see a few folks have joined us since my last check-in. We got Miss Pumpkin in the house. She's here in Tallahassee. Thank you for being here. Miss Janita, who's in Midway, thank you for being here. Miss Michelle Noel, thank you for being here. Shondala, thank you for being here in Tallahassee. Mr. Joel Johnson, Dr. Joel, thank you for being here. Johnny Johnson is here as well. Thank you. And Troy Buchanan, thank you for being here. So, a lot. I mean, we have been talking about a lot, and some of these diseases that, we have just kind of accepted as things that, African Americans have a propensity to acquire or gain, and it's not necessarily the case. And so what are some of the solutions that, maybe are working for some of the patients that you run across? Of course, I know you do the monitoring through the program of their pressure and, looking at the blood work and all of that sort of thing. But what are some of the other solutions that, or some of the things that are working for folks?
Again, the one of the things that we do, you mentioned it earlier, pharmacogenetics or pharmacogenomics. That's a really novel thing that's going on right now, and Medicare actually pays for it. Some insurances pay for it, but what it actually does for us in particular, for folks or patients in general, is it kind of gives you a blueprint. No different than you wanting to know if you're half Chinese or whatever, or wherever you're from, and you just want to know where your heritage originates from, or what it also does is it gives us a blueprint and an idea of our genetics on how we take in medications. And I'll give you a perfect example. I was heading back into town today, and a patient, this is just a perfect example, a patient who's a kidney failure patient of ours, from pressure issues, or I believe lupus is what she had. And she texted me, or she tried to call me, but I couldn't answer because I was driving. She said to me in the text message, she said, "Hey, doctor, they just removed the kidney. The kidney was bad that I was given." So she actually was was a kidney failure patient. She became a recipient of a new kidney. And what happened was she was taking an organ rejection medication, which is usually what you do for the rest of your life. But by you having a new kidney, you actually have a chance, you actually get to urinate again. You don't have to go to dialysis. Your lifestyle and your life can really totally change. And what happened with her was, I said to her, as soon as she told me, she said, I started urinating blood. The kidney was bad. I kept telling them that the medication they were giving me was really making me feel very strange. And then I kind of, said, Mrs. So-and-so, can you hold on a second? I said, didn't we do a pharmacogenetic test for you? And I said, I told you to share that with every single healthcare provider. I said, because that's going to hold them accountable to whatever kind of medication they give you, because from that point, it's on record what your body can handle. And then she said, well, I did give it to this physician office, and she said the ones that were doing my kidney work or whatever the case may be, she said they're never the same doctors. She was just kind of giving me this, the scenario. And then I said to her, which we have in our department at WCX Health, we have an escalating department where we kind of put a doctor to physically focus on their healthcare. Either it may be an ARMP, PharmD, or a medical doctor that will specifically focus on that patient. And that's what I did, and escalated her situation, because somebody has to answer to that, because she was getting an organ rejection medication that was already documented that wasn't working for her, but I don't think she understood, or they didn't read the information, and all it did was cause her kidney to reject. She said she was urinating blood, and the surgeon was so hesitant on wanting to take the kidney out because it looks like a failure surgery, when that really wasn't the case. It was because of the aftermath of it. So again, it was preventative measures that was done, but the follow-up and the follow-through really didn't happen. And again, because in my personal opinion, that being a person of our persuasion, it wasn't taken as serious. So that's the reason why we are wanting to do what we're doing now, to spread the message to the point where they know, okay, well, if I can't call anybody, I don't have anyone on my side to help, I can call these folks. And we're not going to do nothing. We're not going to threaten to sue. We respect every healthcare institution because they really are there to help you. But we will question what you are doing for that person. We'll ask you, well, this, and this. And I told her, I said, you need to just simply ask them, how come you prescribed this for me, but my genetics say this? So we have those most basic things in place, along with our technology that we utilize for the patients, for them to take their pressure or their oxygen level or their heart rate or any of the things, or their sugar level. And we have diaries that are in place to see how their sugars or their vitals or whatever it is has been fluctuating or not fluctuating, and vital clinical information that gives you an opportunity to stop the situation way before it gets worse. So she had probably a year, and that should tell you how they see us sometimes. And she's an older woman, probably, if I'm not mistaken, in her maybe early 60s, if I'm not mistaken. I could even be wrong. It may be less than that. Her daughter she lives with her daughter, but her daughter's not in healthcare. She's in social work. And I kind of felt bad to a certain extent, because I said, man, I don't know if I could have done anything else. I got her set up to do the pharmacogenetic testing. I said, here's your list. I said, share this as much as you want. I said, Medicare pays for it once. They may pay for it twice, but genetics aren't going to change. That's why they only pay for it once. But now you have it. And now you can hold your healthcare providers accountable on how they prescribe medications for you. And there's 3 types of ways our body takes in medication. You can be an inducer, you can be an intermediate, or you can be, Lord, I'm forgetting the other one. But it's 3 different stages that you can be in, where you basically get rid of the drug really fast. You allow the drug to stay in your body for a long time, which causes it to be toxic, or it sometimes can be in the middle. And then there's some other outliers here and there, but not to confuse anyone. Those are some of the processes that go in place. And if I'm not mistaken, she was an inducer. So either the drug wasn't working for her, or she was getting rid of the drug really quickly, or hers was inhibitory. For whatever reason, her body wouldn't accept it, and it just became toxic for her. So when she took it, it became toxic. So it started rejecting the kidney.
Wow.
And that was it. So she had what she had to show the doctor after the surgeries, and they were just, some of them will nod their head. And she's a very timid lady. Her daughter works full time, so the daughter's not able to be there all the time with her.
To advocate for her.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Here we are, calling me while I was, leaving to let me know that she had the kidney taken out, and she sadly is back on dialysis, which that is a time ticking issue on its own, about a 10-year window. And, so again, it's a preventative measures, the lifestyle, the mindset. It will keep you down these really bad roads that sometimes are not a road to recovery,
That lead to chronic disease.
Absolutely.
All right. We got a couple more people that have joined us. Brother Wisa Kufu, greetings. He is here in Tallahassee. Brother Zachary Richardson, thank you for being here. And my freshman FAMU classmate, Ishmael Rentz in Gainesville. Ish said precision medicine will prayerfully become a great thing. And Kiosha said, what type of provider would we see for pharmacogenetics? I'm gonna have to get that down. Or internal medicine. What type of provider?
It doesn't necessarily have to be a provider. Believe it or not to simplify, you do have to sometimes get your physician. It depends on your insurance, but the same way people used to do, what's this thing? Everybody, it was on the commercials where you went and got your genetics done, and you found out you were from France and wherever, and
Oh, like Ancestry.
Ancestry.com and all of that. Exactly.
Okay.
What actually happened when they take your genetics, they're taking everything, meaning they got medical, they got everything. What they were doing was telling you things medically, but I think FDA came in and said, you're not a healthcare provider. You can't tell them that, because people were kind of holding.
Oh.
Yeah. So they ended up kind of putting that onus on the healthcare community to take that part over. So certain labs, it is expensive. I do know that Medicare for elderly patients, they've mandated it for patients that are going into nursing homes and things of that nature because of the drugs. Yeah, a gentleman, Mr. Rentz, mentioned 23. Yeah. So in a nutshell, that precision medication is what a lot of them will call it. It precisely literally tells you what your body can handle and can't handle to a certain extent. And the technology is just getting better every day. There's a lot that I can go into about it, but it's the most accurate that we have as of today. You can go to pretty much any lab and request it. It is quite expensive, but I haven't gone into great detail. I can find out information. My email is up there if you'd like to send an email about it, and I can directly.
Yeah, and we'll put his email up in just a minute. But Keosha's the question is in my mind too about any commercial health plans paying for pharmacogenetic.
For, like I mentioned, Medicare does. I believe some wellness type companies do pay, not wellness, some insurances pay for it under wellness, meaning that if the person's trying to really get themselves together, they'll pay for it. But I'm not 100% sure. We actually do it. We can provide that service for the patient. But again, it's all based on insurance 99% of the times, because of the fact that it's a laboratory that has to, provide the service. But again, I can look into it. What we were doing it at, when we were doing it at the time, we were doing it for HIV/AIDS purposes. And we were also doing it for the kidney failure patients because of what we knew with organ rejection, and also for some other medications that we needed the patients to get on. And we knew that they were going to need to have a genetic profile done on them. It was at that time they definitely needed to have one.
Okay. We got a Maya Merchant joining us. Ish and Ma, I saw your question. I'm gonna put it up in just a minute. But Ish said they will label your readings as recreational if received from a CLIA lab.
Yeah, lab. Yep.
Okay. What's that stand for?
I think it's clinical laboratory something. It's with the Agency for Healthcare Administration. It's like their like these waivers that they medical clinics and hospitals and institutions that are laboratories have to have. Basically, the government monitoring how those labs are done, because some labs do right and some may not do right, so they have to have the overseers, to look at everything. But it's there, and I'm pretty sure it's going to be much more affordable. I don't think the market has been cornered on it as much. There's so much into that, but it's precision medicine is really a good thing in my opinion. It's evening the playing field to a certain extent with all of what I mentioned to you even just the other day, and as far as accountability, just training and building our culture to an extent where our people at least know the basics.
Yeah.
By them just knowing the basics, it would help.
So speaking of the basics, Brother Kufu said, I have 8 siblings. All of us are in our 60s and 70s. When we were kids, we never had to go to the doctor. We raised most of our food and our parents fed us solid food. So you talked about the woman who was preaching that was 98, and
I bet you she was one of them.
Right.
Yeah. Well, I could definitely attest to that because my family, originally they were just fishermen and farmers, and they naturally utilized sea salt. You
Mm,
know, that was just one thing that was very common and natural over there, was using sea salt. It wasn't just sodium salt, which is already predominantly in our body, which is what causes our pressure to go up. And then when your pressure goes up, it's when you have the strokes and everything else that happens, congestive heart failure, etc. Um, Back in those days, like the gentleman mentioned, you ate to live, not you live to eat.
mm-hmm.
That was another thing. So even when I'm over there sometimes and I'm in the country or the village areas with my cousins and some of my family there, I'm the one, and I played football and ran track, and I'm still huffing and puffing, and they're just walking around like it's regular because their activity level is totally different.
Mm-hmm.
So that's why you see those people. And then in biblical times, people think they're lying when they said there are hundreds of. I personally believe that it was true because there's they what do they call it? They'll say you have a genetic age. I can't remember the term, but you can have an actual age and then your genetic age, meaning that when someone takes like a sample of your genetics, you might, like, that lady is 98 years old, but she probably is like a 60-year-old woman because of how she's been living for all that time,
Mm-hmm.
you
Mm-hmm.
know. When I saw the sea salt being used in Nigeria in particular, when I was in the country, I was just watching little things that they were doing, because when I would advise patients here, a lot of them would take offense to some of those things when I would tell them. And then I said, wow, it's a lifestyle over there. So I didn't have to necessarily say it to some of them. Not saying that they didn't have issues over there too, but they do. But one of them, when it came to certain things, I noticed one thing: the country folks here in America and the village folks over there, they both didn't have the same health issues like the people in the city did.
Mm-hmm.
That was another thing. So when I would mention that to them, that helped me to ease the conversation in a little bit, because then you're able to talk about the grandmas and the grandpas and all the people who didn't have those problems. But they looked at Burger King like it was the nastiest thing. but for us, you see, I told you I have a Chick-fil-A problem. That's what I mean. The processed foods and all of that is
Yes.
different. It lacks the nutrients. It's just
Mm-hmm.
not the same. It really is not the same.
Yeah,
So
for sure.
that is 110% true what he's mentioning.
Yes. Thank
Yeah.
you, Brother Kufu. So my mom wants to know, will the doctor come to speak these things into groups in Miami?
I was actually just down there working on that. So we're going to be doing the HBCU tours, and we're going to go to Flomo and Opelika.
Mm-hmm.
And we'll more than
Miami
likely get,
Gardens. Look,
yep, yep.
Miami
No, I'm
Gardens.
sorry, Miami Gardens. But we're going to be doing that as well and getting that together. And slowly but surely we'll be in other areas, but I'm open to speaking. There's a lot that's going on, a lot.
Mm,
And a lot of awareness that happens, and it's very common. And I'd love to talk about it now than when I have to end up talking about it in the ERs. And that's usually when sometimes you'll see some lady or a man, or I'm in a parking lot, and it's always bruh, or hey brother, and it's like, oh, now I'm your brother. But when I was at the health fair event, you didn't want to come up to go get your pressure checked. You didn't want to do this. You didn't want to do that. And of course, I don't act like that with them when they're in the hospital. But
right.
in my mind, I'm like, it shouldn't have gotten to this point,
Mm-hmm.
especially when I read or see some of their files. I'm like, it really shouldn't have gotten to this point. But we're here now. This is what we need to do to get us back to where you need to be, if you can get back. If you can't, this is what we got to do from this point, because this is where you are now.
Indeed, indeed, indeed.
Yep.
So, I mean, it's some of the things that we talk about on a mental health tip, which is eating good food. And when I say good food, I'm talking about fresh fruits and vegetables, not highly processed food, not fried food, not sweet food, not, good food.
Yeah.
It's drinking plenty of water, getting rest, exercising. If you're not out, gardening or, something like that, then make sure you walking or going to the gym or, just being active. It is having those healthy relationships that are not stressing you out.
It's a culture, just like we were saying. It's a culture. One quick thing I want to mention for people to really take heed to and think about it in this fashion, but especially the ones who made a comment about intermittent fasting and things of that nature. I'm sure you've seen those movies, or if you think about it in a hospital, when someone is in a situation where they've had some kind of devastating situation and they were found in a coma or something of that nature. If you do the math and look at that situation, there's several days they probably haven't even eaten. It's the same thing as fasting. They're hydrating the patient, but they're not eating, which means that you can live without those cookies. You can live without the fast foods and some of these things as long as you're hydrating yourself. In the movies, when the person falls down the hill and then he's found by some Indian, and the Indian wraps him up and brings him into some cave with fire, what are they doing? Pouring water in their mouth. You don't see them sitting down there with some fries and the sriracha sauce or whatever and eating. I mean, they're getting the basics that they need. The body will do the rest. This thing called homeostasis is what our body naturally does. It's what God has inertly given our bodies to do. It's your body trying to rebuild itself back to the basics of what it originally intended for it to be. We don't have fat bones. We don't have overweight bones. So our bones are going to be the same size that it originally intended to be at that time. And when people say my knees hurt, it's like your knees hurt because you're overweight. It's not because, you got some genetic issue. You're overweight, or there's something that you're doing that you're not helping. You're not getting enough sunlight. You need sunlight to process vitamin D, which is going to build the calcium and strengthen your bones. So there's a lot of little things that we can do that are very basic. And it comes in the foods. It comes into our mindset. And it just changes our overall outlook on life if we do those things. Going back to the basics is some of the best things that we can do. And hearing what we're going to be speaking about at all these different events, I think will also play a huge role in it as well.
Indeed. All right. So Ish said metabolic age, I believe you may be referencing. Okay.
Metabolic age, yep.
All right. My mom says we have seniors too that need this. My mom, of course, is a senior. She goes to the senior center in Miami Gardens. So she loves information. So, Ma, you have to listen out to when he comes to Miami-Dade. I mean to Flomo. To Flomo. All right. Sister Abaniche is on with us. She said we need to eat and balance foods with high pranic energy to restore and revitalize our series. Thank you for teaching our people. We need high pranic food so we can revitalize and restore our spinal fluid.
Yep, absolutely.
Right. Thank you. All right. Well, she said also a lot of foods we eat every day are dead foods. Yes, very true.
Absolutely.
Very true. Y'all know that I am a gardener, so I encourage people to grow their own or get with somebody who does. Yes. All right. My girlfriend Susan is on in Hampton, Virginia. Thank you for being here. So we have come to the close of our show, but before we go, I want to give you an opportunity to tell folks how they can connect with you, but also let them know a little bit more about the tour in terms of, what they can kind of expect at this kickoff on June 26th, and give some closing remarks.
Well, definitely. With the tour in particular, it's inspired really to help our people just to have a culture of eating good. Because a lot of us, as you can see in the folks that were on, they were giving some great advice. We already know the answers. I think what we need to do now is make it a part of our culture. The same way everybody ran off to see Wakanda Forever and everything else, we need to do the same when we do our things for health fairs and all types of things. Be more proactive, show people the way, things of that nature. Is in reference to the tour, we are going to do just those things, and our goal is to educate the youth as much as possible. Our professors that are there at the universities, along with some of our celebrity ambassadors and our medical ambassadors, we're going to do our best to offer to participate with us, because without them, I don't believe we're going to get the message out as much. My mentor, Brother Shahid, his son got really popular. One of my best friends, his older son, we used to run around in Tallahassee doing stuff for the neighborhoods. And we noticed that we were able to make such a huge impact. And then what we really noticed is that when celebrities say something, for some reason, they seem to listen to it more. Maybe the word just gets out more or people will listen, but I think it humanizes them when they see that it's happening to celebrities too. So we're going to have a lot of that play into what we do with the tour. I did one back in the day in Tallahassee. We brought Floyd Mayweather. Nobody believed that he was coming, but we did bring him. And my reason I'm bringing him was because I wanted, again, to humanize folks, to see that even his uncle, who was a great fighter, they used to call him the Black Mamba before Kobe Bryant was called the Black Mamba. And he, unfortunately, his demise was diabetes. And I'm very sure it was because he was such a tough guy. You can't tell a black man that was tough like that this is going to debilitate him to the extent that it did. And again, prevention was not more than likely his direction. But I don't know the whole story, but that's just an example. So we have many things that we're going to be pushing on, many things that we're going to already have for our folks, as far as making sure that they have access to any and everything that they're able to have access to, especially the seniors. So tell mom that we definitely got her and her crew covered. And then the ones that may not necessarily be seniors just yet, it's expected by the healthcare system that you're doing what you all are doing now versus what happens to seniors and some other folks that unfortunately have those chronic illnesses. But that's basically it. And you can always send me an email. I put it up on, I think, the private chat for you all, or you can also, it's on there. Okay. Yes. And you can definitely send me an email. I'll do my best to always respond. If I can't, I do also redirect it to our team that will help to respond as well. And I just try my best, like I said, to serve the people, help the community as much as possible.
All right. Awesome. 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 Well, we thank you again for being here. Again, that the Reach Out Project will be hosting a panel on June 26th from 1 to 3 in the Family Grand Ballroom. And it'll be a discussion about therapeutic health evaluation to reverse adverse cardiometabolic health outcomes. And so that panel will include Dr. Emmanuel, as well as Steve Belcher, the kidney nurse, Miss Rita Brown, the director, principal at Brownsville Preparatory Institute, Brother Shahid Najim, former youth director and community organizer, and Dr. Felice Wyatt, board certified internal medicine, geriatrics, hospice, and palliative care.
Yep.
So, power packed panel, and you don't want to miss this. So mark your calendar. Those of you who are in Tallahassee, again, that'll be on June 26, 1 to 3. I will be moderating that panel discussion, but also just be on the lookout for future events. Like we said, this is the kickoff of the tour for WCRX Health. He'll be doing HBCU, visiting other HBCUs. And so you definitely want to be a part of what Dr. Emmanuel has going on. All right. So I hope this has been beneficial to you all, the viewers. If it has, please let us know by giving us a clap or a thumbs up or a heart or something in the comments. We got Miss Marilyn Weatherspoon. Thank you for doing this, Dr. Inwang. Appreciate you.
No problem, Doc.
Sister Abaniche. Thank you. Dr. Cherie. Sounds like a great and informative event. Yes. And Miss Kiosha, thank you. Sister Abaniche, thank you, thank you, thank you. Appreciate it. Appreciate it, y'all. And let's keep this conversation going. Share this with a loved one that you think can benefit from it. And let them know we need to do better. We got to do better. Our lives depend on this, right?
Yep, absolutely.
All right. Dr. Joel wants to know, can you come to Albany State?
Absolutely. We're already planning it. I'm assuming that's Georgia.
It is Georgia. It
Yep.
is Georgia. He's instructor there. So yes. Yes.
Absolutely.
Yes. It said, thank you for all you do, Dr. Emmanuel. This has been very informative. Keep up the good work and make our people follow this great advice. Yes.
Thank you.
Yes, yes, yes. Great subject. All right. Thanks, Ma. Thanks, Susan. Appreciate it. All right. So, y'all, his email is there. So, reach out by all means, connect with them if you have some questions or want some additional information. And for those of you who may be new to the platform, I invite you to subscribe to the Conversations with Nicole YouTube channel. Subscribing and supporting, and we need all the support we can get. I am here on Mondays and Wednesdays at 8:30 p.m. specifically talking about mindsets and wellness on Mondays and Wednesdays, and mental health and wellness in Black and Brown communities. So this lines right up with all of that. So thank you again, Dr. Inwang, for being here with us, for all you do, and looking forward to seeing you in person later on in the month.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me, and thank everybody as well. Take care.
Indeed, indeed. All right, y'all. Have a great rest of the evening. Peace.
Bye-bye.